So we all love Google, don't we? We might as well have a look at coding Google in our client. So, we have our client library. One thing we didn't do, which we correctly didn't do, we didn't reference any other libraries. We're going to reference other libraries in a bit, but not just yet. So we're going to create another portable class library. You could do this in all one library, but I'm layering this up to sort of give you the idea of how we're doing this. So we'll call this one on vinyl connector, portable class library, life is good. We want to target Android and iOS, so life is also good. First thing we do, delete the class. Don't think there's any properties we need to put onto there just yet. Now I'm going to open that folder and go to it and just bring some code over and pull it in. Okay, and I'm going to reference that on here. And then we'll look at the code that we could have just written, but obviously I'm not just going to write lots of code. You'll see lots of this diagnostics.debug.write line throughout my code. It's not needed, but trust me, it does help you understand what the heck's going wrong when you're trying to run this on a physical device. Okay? The debugging experience, there is debug and you can step through code, but it's not always the best thing in the world. So I tend to use this diagnostics debug write line, and that just puts it out into this output window down here. It'll put it out to there and we'll be able to see it going through. So we've got a connector. Up here we've got a DB connector. DB connector is part of the Harmony framework, and that allows us to connect through Harmony and Bridge and all that kind of good stuff. So when we create a new DB connector, now that should be green. Does anybody know why it's not green? I haven't added the NuGet package. So let's add the NuGet package, because then I'll not forget and things will hopefully build. So manage NuGet. Obviously I am on the client, so I'm going to use Harmony and not full fat framework. I'm going to use just the Harmony stuff and install that. And of course I'll accept. You can manage NuGet at the solution level as well as the individual project level, but I'm just doing it at the project level. And now it's gone green, which we are very pleased about. So when I create a new instance of DB connector, I'm going to say, okay, I'm a remote machine. There's my credentials that gets past Richard/QWERTY. I'm not doing authentication and authorization on the server, so that information is relatively meaningless at this moment in time. Symphony Bridge cloudapp.net 8081, that's my instance of my service that's running on that virtual machine that we set up, and that's underneath that service. I put those DLLs. And then, just like we said before, we've got the on-vinyl data, table mapper, map to file. That's where my database is, please. And Mr. Parrish has suggested that we change that to be a friendly name and then implement a way on the server to convert a friendly name into the namespace class method. Also, when we create the connector, we can also tell it what type of connection that we want to do. Now, this type of connection just indicates which communication model and communication protocol is used. It makes no difference to the way you code it. It makes no difference to the way you call it. So you can ignore IIS server because that doesn't work anymore. I've taken it out. And I've taken it out because I'm implementing the REST. Oh, it's not out yet, obviously, but when I implement the REST one, IIS server will go because it'll be a pure REST implementation. So you've got service and console web. They're actually the same, and it doesn't matter whether it's a service or a console app, but that uses the HTTP web API. So the service and console server TCP, that's the local intranet connection, TCP/IP. You wouldn't use that over the internet, it's not secure enough. And that's the relay server. So that tells you that you've got an Azure relay that your client has got an outbound connection to, and you connect through that. Okay, and there will be the REST one coming to an environment near you soon. So once you've got the connection, that's pretty much it. We'll create an internal copy or a local private copy of our current vinyl data. That's what our views are going to bind to later on in the, not that physical field, but a property that provides that. So we'll create a public async method. Remember, this is how we connect into things or connect to the server. Here we're doing the run data select, so select artist, title, image from vinyl details were, barcode is 1, our new vinyl details and barcode. So at some point in time, the client, the device, is going to make a call into check for vinyl, and we're going to then check to see if we've got that vinyl. Okay? And as long as we get a response back, so result count not equal to 0, so we've got one, we're going to basically grab the results. There may be one, there may be more than one, depending on what the query was. Because we're going on a full primary key, we're only going to get one back. Now, collections in .NET are 0-based, not 1-based, even though this is Synergy. You can put .array at the top to say 1-based to 0-based, but generally they're 0-based by default, which is why we've got results 0. That's not going to give us a 0 subscript error. Okay? And again, the debug stuff is just allowing me to print out, yes, I got something back, and yes, I got a title, and yes, I got an artist, and yes, I got an image URL. Okay? That's just allowing my debug stuff to see that we've got something. If we catch any exceptions, we'll display those, and we can set this last error message, and then potentially we can do something in the code. And then we're going to return response, and response is going to be either true, we got something, or the default of false, something's gone wrong. Okay? So we'll enter in a barcode, we'll press the button, it's going to call this, and we're going to see if we've got it in our collection. If we haven't got it in our collection, then our view model is going to say, or our higher up the technology stack level is going to say, well, you've not got one, okay. Can we find it? Is there such a thing on the third interweb, as they say? So as long as barcode's not equal to null, then we're going to go off and do our stored procedure. So our stored procedure is here, find vinyls online. So that's going to call through Harmony, over to the bridge, over to the server, execute that method, find vinyl online. That's then going to go to another web service, which is Google. Do a search, bring the results back, I'll parse out those results, put them into a Symphony data object, and return them back to the client. What could go wrong? And as long as you get it, then we're going to do exactly the same. Okay, put the results that I got into my current data object, and do some diagnostics, but yeah, everything is true. I'll return a response of true. So the code is very similar, whether you're doing a select or a data exec command. Now, if I don't have it in my collection, I'm going to, in my UI, give them the ability to say, I'm adding this to my collection, I'm buying it, I'm about to buy it, so add it into my collection. Now, if I want to put something into the database, I can do a data insert, and I will insert into vinyl details whatever was just come back from my Google search. So that will populate my remote database with the data that I've just got back from Google. So again, client says, have I got this? Goes to the server and does a select, comes back and says, 0 returned, you've not got any. Okay, call into a method, which I've written, that then does a Google search over here into the World Wide Web, comes back to the client and says, yeah, Google have them, here's the information. Yeah, that looks like the same album cover, the same title. So I'll talk back to the server and say, here's that data object that you've just returned me from the Google search, and the phone has said, yes, I want it, so here it is back, and put it into the database. Okay? And that's it. That's the functionality of this client. If, for whatever, that should come back as 1 to say I've been able to insert it. But if you try and insert something you've already got, although the device application shouldn't allow you to do that, but if you try to, you get duplicate key. Well, there's no such concept as a sort of duplicate key. It's an error you've not been able to insert. There is ways of getting at that information, but essentially we're just going to check the result is 0. To expose the data to the outside world from this, I'm going to create a couple of public properties. The last error message is just a string, so if we do get some sort of error, we can display it on the UI. And current vinyl just exposes the backing field mCurrent vinyl. And it's mCurrent vinyl that we were putting data into and getting the information from the Symphony Bridge server. And that's literally all the code in the connection. So whatever my client does above it, that's what it can connect to the server. Okay? So, I'm not going to save that because it shouldn't have changed. Let me bring back my solution. Do you think it'll build? And it's exactly the same reason why it won't build that the other one didn't build. What we didn't do before when we built the desktop client was tell it where the data object was. And we had to reference the server data object library. And we have to do exactly the same here. So we'll add a reference. It's in a project. We don't want the server one. We're on the client now, so we want the client data. And it builds this time. Okay, build succeeded.